I'm
Okay.
singing the easy short in my head.
I know, I could tell by the way you're moving. It's an easy short.
I like it. It's the easy short.
Oh, yeah. It's easy short.
It's it's a presidential election situation.
Welcome to the situation the easy speakeasy.
Situation speakeasy.
We are back for another short episode of the wonderful Easy Speakeasy. I'm your host, Diana, joined by my lovely co-host, the OGKG.
Yeah, Kristi here. We're gonna drop these gems for your eardrum.
And we are just a few short days away from a very pivotal United States presidential election. And
Raise your hand if you're tired of hearing the word election.
raise your hand if you're tired of seeing all these horrible ads. Terrible. I'm like, you spent
Oh,
so much money on that?
I'm like, literally donate to a nonprofit.
Literally.
Thanks.
Literally. Because, like, whose mind are you changing? Anyway, there's a lot. There's a lot happening for all of us. I think we are all ready for this to be done. I think I
Mhm,
can speak for the masses as it relates to that. Um,
mhm.
and, I think there's a lot that we have to consider when something as pivotal as a presidential election is coming up for us as individuals, but also collectively as a country. Um, so today we want to talk a little bit about one, getting ready for the big day, both logistically, but also from a mental health standpoint, right? Because that's what we're here to talk about is mental health. Um, and also, so we're talking about pre-work and post-work. What happens after the election?
Ah,
What
this is
are
the
we
trainers
doing?
in us. It's the
Yeah.
training coming out.
Yeah. We are here to teach you so that you can apply these lessons in the next coming days in the name of the collective mental health and well-being of us
Ex
all.
exactly. Let there be
So,
peace on earth.
yes, please, please.
And as I'm hearing an old church hymn, "Let it begin with me."
Yes. Let it begin with each one of us. So, for logistical things, I think most people probably at this point in time, we're a few days away, know what they're doing uh election wise, like where you got to go. If you haven't voted early, if you haven't um done a mail-in ballot, then you're probably heading to the polls on Tuesday. So what's the website that we're telling people to go to?
Vote.org.
Vote.org. If you have any questions, you should be able to get those answered at vote.org. You can find out if you're registered to vote. You could find out where to go to vote. You can find out what forms of identification you need to bring.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and I don't know what the numbers are in terms of how many people have voted early or whatever the case may be, but those lines can be long. I remember the last time I went to vote, the last presidential election, I was in line for quite some time. So, maybe just like bring some water, maybe a
Mhm,
snack if you need it.
mhm.
Wear some comfortable shoes
Yep.
and carry with you an abundance of patience.
Yes. A good attitude.
Yeah, in a good attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, some other things you can do is request a ballot ahead of time so that you
Mm,
can drop your ballot off, for early voting. different places have different things, so you can go to vote.org and find this out. Some places you can go and they actually have places set up where you can go into a voting booth and vote early. Other places you go and you fill out your ballot and drop it into like a voting mailbox type of situation, if you will.
Mhm.
So all of that. Um, Depending on where you are when you hear this, you may still be able to vote by mail. That may You may have already needed to request your ballot at this
Yeah.
point, but that depends on the state. Some states, all states have different um, deadlines around when you can request all of those things because a lot of times uh, ballots are still accepted in after because if there's not if the race in the election votes are too close to call and they are still counting in every single vote that is coming in by mail, sometimes there's a little bit of leeway on those things, but those vary state to state.
Yeah.
So you'd really have to look up the specifics on your state for that.
Yeah. Emphasis on state to state. It's different everywhere.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm. The goal is to get your vote in on November 5th.
yes.
You
Get it
know it's
in.
gonna count
Get it
on
done.
November 5th.
Yes.
There are some other things in safeguards, so we know that there's a lot of things out there around voter suppression and all of those kinds of things, but one thing that you can do is cast a provisional ballot. So
Mm.
if anything happens at the poll where they can't find your name or something happens with your ID or anything like that, you can always cast a provisional ballot, which you cast right there. It doesn't go directly into the machine.
Mhm.
It's like on the side and but it's still a vote that counts until the other things get figured out. So that's a way to make sure that your vote is in and then you can figure out like why your name wasn't on the list or whatever thing after, but it's a way to make sure that your vote does count.
Yes. And we need every vote to count. Last I checked, this is still a very tight race. And so every vote is going to count and it's going to make a difference. I think in
Mhm.
the past there have been some landslides and clear front runners and winners, but this election is not that. So yeah, get your vote in, do what you got to do. Again, it's vote.org where you can go and find the information you need if you haven't already done so.
Mhm.
Um,
And we
yeah,
should treat every election, whether we think it's gonna be a landslide or not, like it's gonna be close because
yeah,
every vote does count, and we need to
hmm,
exercise our voices. And like I've spoken about before, even if it's presidential election, even if you don't like your choices for the presidential election, there are a ton of other people that are running for things it locally, and the
yeah,
local votes really matter. And you don't have to vote for anyone on the ballot, right? So you can skip the presidential piece and vote for everyone else. Or you can go in
hmm,
and just vote for the president and not vote for anyone else. But going in there and voting and making your voice heard in some capacity, there's questions that come out across the states about different topics that are happening. So
yep,
it's not just people, it's issues, it's, you know, how dollars are going to be spent. It's all of these things that really matter to us on a specific day. I know, like, for instance, in Massachusetts, there's a big question coming up around how servers in
hmm,
restaurants and bars are being compensated. And so will they continue to be tipped
yep,
or like separately, or will that now be included in their like hourly wages? So this is
hmm,
a big ballot question, right? And
yeah,
so this is an important thing, right? If you have a stake in this question one way or the other, no matter what your personal choice is, from wherever you stand in that issue as a server or maybe a business owner or a patron or however it is, going in and making a choice on that issue is important. And that's what helps to shape the future, right? That could potentially change the way that servers are paid forever, right? You never know what it could take to get that question back on a ballot again. So it's important to do all of these kinds of things. I know in Massachusetts, I don't think this is a question on the ballot this time, but there has been a major effort to try to get a question on the ballot for a number of years around standardized testing for kids. And should we be
I
passing
think it is
kids?
on there.
Is it on there this time?
This year, the where we have the opportunity in Massachusetts to do away with the MCAS or to keep it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for people who are not in Massachusetts, the MCAS is the Massachusetts standardized test.
Mhm,
And the way that it works in Massachusetts is kids have to pass this standardized test in order to graduate from high school.
mhm,
So if they're straight A students and they don't pass the MCAS, they don't get their diploma.
mhm.
Um,
Yep.
which is something that a lot of people do not agree with. I personally am one of them, especially as somebody who is, and this is why we have this podcast, somebody who is raising a child who is a transitional age kid at this point and is finishing up. The standardized testing has been it's had a major impact on his education,
Yeah,
because I feel like over the years we've spent more time thinking about making sure he gets through the standardized testing than we have on him obtaining education and
yeah.
actually learning material. And
Mhm.
so while he was able to get through that testing, now
Yeah.
that he's like finishing up his last credits, I'm looking at what he's producing and I'm like, there's so much actual material that he
Content,
should have
yeah.
learned in content that I feel like it was missed because there was such a focus on getting him through the standardized testing. But that's super important for him in the world because he needs to go on and have a high school diploma to do anything.
Yep.
Or then what? It's facing the GED, which is really hard for kids with mental health needs or learning disabilities or autism or developmental delays, or there's like standardized testing is typically good for a very small subset of people, which are good test takers.
Mhm.
And, I feel like most people that I talk to, if you talk about tests, most people are like, I hate taking tests.
Yeah, I've never met a person that's like, "Yeah, I love it. Test
Yeah.
me."
No one's like, tomorrow
Yeah.
I'm taking a test.
Yeah, that's not a thing. That's
Isn't
not a
that
thing.
amazing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's an issue of equity, right?
right, right.
And making sure that, every kid, regardless of whatever challenges or differences that they have the full ability to succeed and to achieve the things that they're looking to achieve.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's that question. There's my personal favorite on the ballot this year is the question 4 in Massachusetts, which is talking about legalizing psychedelic drugs. Which, there's been so much research, and not just legalizing it for recreational use, but from a treatment perspective, under the supervision of somebody who, has been trained, because there's been so much research that has come out lately about how certain psychedelic drugs can alleviate depression or anxiety or really other really common mental health issues and challenges. And so I would be really excited as a provider to be able to explore that more closely here at home. And, it reminds me of
I'll
our
be excited
conversation.
as a person in the world to explore that,
Yeah.
generally speaking.
Well, it might be legal here soon. So there,
Listen, I feel
yeah,
if you trace back, I mean, we talked about some of this in our second episode this season with
with
Sam.
Sam. Yeah.
Um, but if you trace back to when psychedelics became outlawed,
Yeah.
sort of the same pathway as cannabis. It
Yep.
wasn't about the fact that people were concerned about the drug itself. It was more
Yeah.
about how does the government get their fair share
Yep.
of the money that was being made, because
Yeah.
there were a lot of great outcomes that were happening back in the 60s and
Yeah.
70s that
Yeah.
people were utilizing um,
Yep.
psychedelics for ongoing mental health treatment, and especially for trauma.
Yes. It's there's so much coming out research wise that shows just the incredible difference it can make in mental health. And I'm always remembering Pineapple Express. Remember that movie?
Mhm.
They have that scene where they're like, testing it, having people test it in like the military, and they're watching it and they're like, these people are too happy. They're too free. Illegal. And it's just like, it's kind of how it happens. So I'm really excited to see how these things turn out. And I'm also really excited to play a role and, like you said, exercising my voice to make some of these changes that can make a huge difference in the lives of so many people.
Mhm. And
Uh,
bring your kids. It
yes.
is so important. Okay, the collective sigh that everybody just did about bringing their kids to the poll. Look, we have to we have to train our kids, right? That's
Yep.
part of parenting, right?
Yep.
Is we're training these cute little animals of ours, right? And just like we train our pets, we train our animals.
Yeah.
We train our kids, right?
Yes.
But I think a lot of times people don't want to go to the polls because they don't want to stand in that line, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of that is because their parents didn't bring them to the polls over the years, and so
Yeah.
they didn't build up that fortitude
Yes.
to go to know that when you go to vote, you're gonna stand in line, right? And
Yes.
it's an experience, and yes, as a parent, is it annoying? The kids are gonna complain, "When are we going home? Oh my god, I'm
Yep.
hungry, they're
Yep.
crawling on the floor, all of these things are happening." But it's important to give them that experience and to bring
Yes.
them into the ballot box and to see what it's like to
Hmm.
cast their vote and to let them be the one to, like, put the ballot into the machine. This
Yes.
is how we build the future voters of the United States,
Yeah.
and this is what we need. We need voters. We need kids turning 18 years old and
Hmm.
caring about what is happening in the world and being willing to say, I'm gonna November 5th is already marked off on my calendar
Yep.
that I know I'm gonna be standing in line. I have my snacks and my comfortable clothes and my
Yeah.
shoes, and I have my 5 friends that I go with every year that live in my same polling ward, and, like, we all go together so we're not bored, and we do whatever thing that we do together and make sure that our voice is heard, right?
Yeah.
And then that's how you build, like, collectives of people who make sure that voting happens. This is
Yep.
important to do. It starts with them complaining about it at 4 years
Mhm.
old.
Yep, it's all about modeling, just like we model other things, how you clean your room, how to brush your teeth, how to, tie your shoes. This is how you vote. And
Mhm.
it makes a huge difference.
Mhm. Yep.
Um,
And I think we push our systems that way, right? The
yeah,
more we show up, the more we vote, the more this happens, then our systems have to do more to accommodate us. There
yeah,
should be more polling stations. There should be more polling workers. Like all of those things. The realistically, the lines shouldn't be this long, right?
it's
But
true.
it's going to take all of us to be out there all the time and going, and then making a stink about it and saying
Yeah,
we shouldn't have to wait this long, and what is
yes,
it going to take to get more polling booths, and how can I volunteer to be a poll worker, and all
mhm,
of these different things. Get in there, start networking with people and figuring out, like, all right, how can I get 5 more polling booths at this section? Can I get 2 of my friends to work a polling center with me every 2 years so that we can make sure that people get through and get their votes in? I mean, this is
sounds
the
like a fun
grassroots
time.
work that happens. It's worthwhile.
Absolutely, totally worthwhile and makes such a huge difference.
Mhm.
Um And, I think to close for today, one of the things that has been really top of mind for me in working with people is just the amount of stress that we're all under. I just want to acknowledge that, it's a stressful time, regardless of which candidate you want to win, which person you're rooting for. It's a stressful time, right? We've talked in the past about how this stressful time can induce some uncomfortable conversations with friends, families, God forbid, coworkers. And I think there's a lot of rhetoric out there that really pushes the narrative forward of division. And so, I think one thing that we can all be united around is the importance of mental health and the importance of taking care of ourselves as individuals, but also taking care of one another, our neighbor, help thy neighbor. And so, election stress is definitely something that a lot of people encounter. So I don't want anyone who's out there listening to feel like they are, you know, uh different, or that they, there's something wrong with them if they are experiencing heightened anxiety, trouble sleeping, irritability, difficulty concentrating around this time, because it's very stressful, and we all know, for us, the way that this election and the results of this election can make a difference in our lives from an individual standpoint, but also collectively. I think we all have thoughts and opinions about that. And the uncertainty, leading up to Tuesday and through Tuesday night, we're all going to be glued to our TVs, or our radios, listening in, trying to figure out which state did what.
I'm
And
having an
so
election party.
you are?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a great idea.
I
Take
gotta lift the vibration,
Yeah, yeah, take some of that stress off. Everyone eat good, drink good,
Mhm. Go to the
Um,
polls, come to my
yes,
crib after,
yes.
have a
I love
drink,
it.
have some food.
I love it. I love it.
You can
That's
watch
a
the
great
results with music and not listening to people talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that.
I've
I
heard
like
enough talking at this
we
point.
we've all heard enough. We've all heard enough. I like that too, because, you're really bringing in the element of community, which is, I think, one of those things that is so important now and in the future. Is, it can be a huge stress reliever to be able to lean on our support people, and to just remind us all, like, what's important to us, like,
Mhm.
to family, friends, our community. And so, yeah, I love that.
I
um
was thinking about setting up one of those, like, little thing, like, standing out somewhere with, like, a sign that says, you finally voted. Do you need a hug?"
yeah,
And shit on the sign.
a hug of post voting hugging booth.
Yes.
That would be so cute. That would be so cute. I mean, most people probably do need a hug. I mean, yeah, it's a stressful time.
Mhm.
And, I also just have to say that, we'll probably know the results Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and one way or another, we're going to feel a slew of emotions, regardless of whether or not our preferred candidate won. I think it's just important for us to preempt and to think about what our decompressing is going to look like afterwards.
Mhm.
I
And
am
celebration,
and
right? Like,
celebration.
I think it's important for us, like, on the if we're in a celebratory state, that we need
Yeah,
to remember that, because this is looking like it's gonna be a tight race for the presidential election,
yeah,
that means that 50% ish,
yep,
45% ish of our neighbors,
yeah,
which is what everybody is,
yep,
are not feeling great,
yep,
right? And so, like, there's nothing worse when, like, you won a game or
yeah.
whatever, right? Or I'm sorry, you
When
lost a
you
game,
lose,
and
yeah.
the winners are, like, not good sportsmanship,
Ah.
right? Like,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, we have to just be together,
mhm,
like, the time has definitely come, I feel like, over the past several years, that we're at a boiling point of us coming together, and I think we all need to make some promises to ourselves, for
Mhm.
ourselves and for our own children and like the children of the world, that
Yeah.
we are going to do simple things like not be boastful and be thoughtful about how we're coming to into the world, whether things went our way or didn't.
Yeah.
And if they did, that we're not going to be over the top ridiculous about it, that
Yeah.
like we're gonna be good-willed towards men, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that we go out into the world, and this is still an important time to have conversations with people
Yep.
about where we find common ground, because
Yeah.
there's so much common ground no matter what side. There are always things that we agree on, right?
Yep.
I think we should all agree that we're not going to engage in any kind of violence towards anyone
Mm.
or anything. No
Mhm.
buildings, no statues, no anything for like
Yes.
a, a while.
Yes.
Just like we need to like go through the stages. People need to go through the stages of grief,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that takes time and it takes processing. And there's been so much lead up. I mean, you literally can't do anything without hearing something about the election. You
Yes.
almost can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Like, you go to the grocery store to run in and get a gallon of milk, and like it's
Yep.
about the election.
We need
So
to decompress. We need to give it
yeah,
all of us time and
everybody needs to
space.
decompress, and
Yeah.
everybody needs to give each other grace, and everybody needs to be handling each other with kitten gloves, or
Yeah.
not handling each other at all.
Yes. Sometimes
Hands off.
it's okay to just stay away, give some space, give some
Listen,
time,
it
let
should
people
be
know
a
that you're
time of,
there.
yes, how like I say to my nephew when I leave him every time, it's like, hug or a handshake,
Yeah.
like, this is
Yeah.
what we should be doing. Are we
Yes.
hugs and handshakes only,
Yeah.
and that's it. We move on as wonderful, graceful Americans together,
Yep.
and we embark down whatever this path is together,
Mhm.
and it, it can be wonderful and successful no matter which side, if we choose to work together.
Yep. It's true.
I believe that, as a woman of
Absolutely.
faith and as somebody who believes in the good of people at their core.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I believe in us. I think we can do it. I think we can support one another. I think we can all exercise our right to vote and do so proudly and be okay with the results either way, knowing that we did our best and be prepared to pitch in to help any way that we can to make ourselves successful, both on an individual level, but also on a countrywide level. So, good luck to you all. Please
Mhm.
reach out to us if you need to talk. We have our speakpipe.com/easy speak on air. If you just need to vent, if
Yes.
instead of going to tag up and do some graffiti on a statue, or I don't know, like storm the Capitol, which we are hoping nobody does that this time around. If you just need to let off some steam, just go and record a voice message for us. We'd be happy
Mhm.
to listen to it and absorb it. And it's
Maybe play it
anonymous.
on air and
Maybe
talk
play it
about
on
it.
air and talk about it, right? Because if you're feeling that way, then you could probably pretty much guarantee that there's somebody else somewhere out there feeling similarly to you, and we can feel a lot less lonely when we know that we're not the only ones who feel the way we feel. So I would encourage you to go to our speakpipe.com/easy speak on air and tell us how you're feeling, what you're thinking about the election. And yeah, good luck. And we'll see you again soon. And don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review.
Yeah. We'll
Mm.
talk to you soon.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Okay, bye.
Bye.